This week we wrap up our series focusing on the 2025 inductees to the Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction with one that is near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah, Michael J. Danna was the person who hired me, Kristen, Neil Melanson, and hosted this show from 1997 until his passing in 2015.
Hello everyone, welcome to This Week in Louisiana Agriculture. I'm Michael Danna.
This is how most remember Michael J. Danna, as the host of This Week in Louisiana Agriculture from 1997 to 2015. It's a job he loved and one that fed his passion.
Mike was a storyteller.
Jim Monroe was the assistant to the president at Louisiana Farm Bureau in 1985 when Mike interviewed for the job of editor of the Louisiana Farm Bureau News. At the time, Mike was working as a reporter for the Monroe News Star World.
He had his very serious face on. He had his reporter's notebook, and he was being the serious journalist that I think he thought we needed. And so from then on, he was part of the Farm Bureau family.
Mike had no broadcast experience when he joined the Information Department at Louisiana Farm Bureau. Information Director and TWILA creator Reginald Wallace told Mike he would teach him everything he needed to know.
It's raining right now in Tangipahoa Parish, the heart of Louisiana's strawberry production. And that wouldn't be so unusual except for the fact that the rain was preceded by 2 days of snow and a killer freeze.
Mike honed his broadcast skills over the next 4 years, leading up to the election of Ronnie Anderson as the next president of Louisiana Farm Bureau. This video is from Mike's story introducing Anderson as the new president.
He cost me a lot of money at that time. He made a comment about us living in a modest turn-of-the-century farmhouse. And I've added on and remodeled ever since.
While Anderson was making changes to his home, Mike was changing jobs, replacing Wallace in 1997 as the Director of Public Relations at Louisiana Farm Bureau. He was also changing perceptions about agriculture.
He really wanted to make sure that he was telling the farmer's story. That's what his main motivation was to tell the farmer's story. The tagline that it's the only show bringing farmers and consumers together every week, that was really his mission. That's what he wanted to do. He thought that the American Gothic, the picture of the old farmer and his wife with the hay fork, had done more to damage the image of American agriculture than anything he could think of. And so he was bound and determined to correct that image, that for everyone to be able to see how agriculture really did operate.
As host of This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, Mike would take the show on the road across Louisiana, across the United States, and even around the world. He filed reports from Israel, from Istanbul, Turkey, and would travel with the LSU Ag Leadership classes on its capstone international trips.
I stopped to change a battery in my microphone, and apparently I've become separated from the group. And I appear to be lost. The forester who was conducting the tour said there was only one predator out here, and my Spanish is not very good. He either said that predator was the puma or the penguin, so I'm hoping for the latter.
Off camera, Mike was a loyal friend and a devoted father. Taylor Danna Jaro is his daughter.
There was never a time where I felt like there was a version of myself that he wouldn't accept. You know, as passionate as he was about his job, he was just as passionate about being a father. You know, he was selfless, he was giving, he was kind, gentle, understanding, you know, and that really crossed over into his work and into, I think, everyone that he came into contact with, right? I think anyone you talk to has some amazing story that they, you know, would tell about him.
In 2012, Mike went on TWILA to share some personal news.
On June 20th, I was diagnosed with stage 3 esophageal cancer.
Mike fought the disease undergoing radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery. It wasn't long after that battle was over that Mike was diagnosed with leukemia in May of 2014. He did the best he could to continue to tell the farmer's story and even host TWILA while undergoing treatment. On the episode that aired January 24th, 2015, Mike made this announcement.
I am pleased and grateful to report that my leukemia is currently in remission.
That would be Mike's second to last broadcast. Following this Louisiana Farm Bureau Leadership Conference, Mike went to the hospital with an intestinal obstruction.
I remember him being there, and he was in pain. I mean, he really was hurting. And he made a presentation to that group. It was probably the best presentation I've ever heard him make. And right after he finished, Wendell Molly loaded him up and took him back to Baton Rouge to the hospital. And I really don't think he ever got out of the hospital after that.
The esophageal cancer had spread. Doctors told him he had only days to weeks to live.
There was always this memory for me where he took me and my brother skiing. And I was probably 8 or 9 at the time. And, you know, I had gotten separated from the little group that I was skiing with, and I had no idea where I was. I was on the middle of a mountain somewhere, you know. And I was alone by myself. And, you know, all of a sudden, he comes out of nowhere, you know, and he finds me. And I just remember, you know, when we heard that he was terminal, and we had days to weeks, you know, left. I just remember going to the back where he was at the hospital in the bed, and I remember telling him that story and, you know, how much it meant to me that he found me when I felt alone, and that it was just something that stuck with me. You know, I don't know why, but it did. And, you know, the first thing out of his mouth was, you know, I'll always find you. I'll always be there.
In those final weeks, Mike used the time to do something many would not in his situation.
He tried to make contact with all his friends and to tell them goodbye and to tell them what he loved about them. Yes, he did. And he had some things he wanted me to do, and I got those done.
The written and the spoken word were so important to him, and there was no way he was going to leave this earth without letting the people who he loved and cherished know that what they meant to him. You know, there was just no way. It wasn't his style. It was never going to be that way. And, you know, I have so many people who have said, you know, oh, he gave me this, or he said these words to me at the end, or, you know, we spent this time together that was so meaningful, saying goodbye. So many people don't get that, you know, and I think that has been one of the things that has really left people with this, you know, overwhelming feeling of his presence at all the time, is because he really did devote those last weeks and days to making sure that people knew, look, you were special to me. You made a difference in my life.
Now, farmers and ranchers are letting Michael J. Danna know the difference he made in their lives with his induction into the Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction.
If he were alive today, the pride he would have, you know, and he wasn't a prideful person in that way, you know, he was a humble person, but, you know, I think he would be tremendously proud of himself and the work that he has done and did.
I think it's well-deserved. I think as far as impact on agriculture, his entire life had a real impact on agriculture and the understanding of the general public about agriculture.
The Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction induction ceremony was held on Thursday, March 6th, the 10th anniversary of Mike's passing. Mike's daughter, Danna, thought that was no coincidence. During her acceptance speech, she spoke about how Mike's courageous battle with cancer led her to work the last 10 years in the medical field, helping people with cancer.
The fight against cancer is one like agriculture. It takes many. It takes many. And I consider myself to be a champion of those with cancer, and You know, that's a promise that I made to my father 10 years ago when he was passing. I promised to carry the torch and try to leave a legacy that would be worthy of him.
Inducted the same night as Danna were Forester Joe Burns and LSU Ag Center wheat breeder Dr. Steve Harrison.